Welcome to Enchanted Moments Podcast. I'm Monica.
I'm Spencer.
This is Creme Brulee. And we are in a new location today because we have no air conditioning in another room. And it just will not work in today's heat. Not at all. Not at all. Today we're going to talk about psychic and intuition and the clairs. And that is the 5 or 6, and sometimes people go all the way to 8 different ways of receiving intuitive information. So I keep a little note because there's too many of them and I always forget one if I don't. Yeah. So we'll go down that list pretty quickly actually. Anyway, we are all psychic. We're all very intuitive human beings. It is just the same as if you were an artist. You just have some people who are naturally fabulous artists, and then you have people who go to art school, learn how to be artists, and are good artists. But there's always that person out there who's going to be doing the masterpiece, but most of us can just practice and we can do the same things. We get information all day long, and some of it's extremely subtle and some of it will knock you over the head. But the point is we all get it. And it's just learning to allow the information to come in, to recognize the way you receive it. Yes. And then you can do a better job of following your own guidance and offering it to others if that's what you're drawn to do. Mm-hmm. So the first clair that we talk about is clairvoyance, and that is because everybody thinks about being psychic as you see things. There's a couple different ways of seeing things. Some people actually see things in the present, right in front of them. That's just fine. Others see things in their mind. So you see it in your head, like a picture or a little video, giving you that information visually, but internally visually, not externally visually. The other way most people recognize it is clairaudience, which is hearing. Hearing is also the same. Sometimes you think you're hearing it in the room with you, and other times you're hearing it on one or the other sides of you, or in your head. That's an easy way to do it. You might get a word, you might get a sentence, but clairaudience is usually pretty brief, direct, to the point. Might be a song, could be an animal sound, it could be any kind of thing you would hear. So, you don't have to have an expectation that it would be a certain type of information that you would get hearing-wise.
I used to wake up with random songs in my head that I may have not particularly cared for or listened to a lot, but I never understood it when I was young. And more recently I try to think about what potential connection there could be of why this one line of this song that I don't really listen to is in there for.
Well, and if you can't think of it right away, write it down.
Write it down.
Because it may come to you later. We tell people that when they get readings, don't discredit any information you get.
Yeah.
It may not be something you recognize or can relate to at the time, but if you make a note of it, record it, listen to it later, it may be something that you remember. Mm-hmm. So that makes it even better. Okay, claircognizance is knowing, and it's a knowing and sensing through emotion. It may be a physical sensation, so you may have something come into your mind or just a thought and you get chills or goosebumps or whatever, and that's just a way of allowing you to know that that's information that you should remember. Physical sensations like goosebumps or chills or a weird feeling are just as valid as any other sign or information getting way or whatever. You just cannot let those go. They are important. Clairaudience. That is so funny. I have never had this happen. So if somebody has, more power to you, but I've known absolutely no one.
Yeah, once you went past the 4 or 5, I was like, I don't
You
know if
get
these-
a taste.
Yeah?
So you may get a flavor. It's just, I have never known anyone to get that, but it is an existing way of getting information through taste. Grandma may have made apple pie. I would get a smell more,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
which is clairaudience, which we get all the time with cigarette smoke. Whenever my dad shows up, it's cigarette smoke. So getting it through scent, I think, is a little easier to deal with than trying to figure out if you're tasting something. But that's just me, because I've never experienced it. Those are the main 6. The others that people can come up with, I think, are just subsets of those. The 2 that everybody remembers are clairvoyance and clairaudience, because you want that big impact to get your information. Information will come through in any variety of ways, and subtle is usually the way.
Yeah.
And it has to be what you develop. So in practicing getting your information, if you see that you've got 1 or 2 that are stronger, then, when you're doing questioning for yourself or others, you will try to get information that way. But it's important not to let the things that you don't usually get go. So if you're sitting and you're talking and you're asking your higher self for information for you, and you come up with a thought, and that thought gives you chills, then I would say that is absolutely legitimate form of information. And it isn't important that we give information to others. We think of people who are psychic or intuitive as using that gift with other people. But everybody is psychic and intuitive, and we need to use that skill for our own use. It's just as important that we check on our own information as it is for someone else. Because we've talked about being on your path. Well, do you want to make sure you're doing something and making a decision that keeps you there? Ask what I most need to know today. If you get a word, great. What makes me feel the best today? You may get worthy. I got that yesterday, which I thought was very odd. But maybe I wasn't feeling worthy enough. So that's what my higher self said I needed yesterday. Licking, okay. But that is really the easiest way to explain what we get and what we don't get. The way our brain works is we have left brain and we have right brain. And I'm going to stick that there for you, sweetie. Left brain is our 3rd dimensional brain. It is where we get our beliefs. When we develop, it's our logic. We tend to get stuck on the left side because people identify it with who they are. Their ability to solve problems, et cetera, is left-brained. Our right brain is our intuitive side. It's our out of this dimension side. It is not in the 3 dimensions So it is our creativity. It is where this intuition resides. What happens is when you get those messages, it goes into the left brain, and it tries to decide what's going on. So it's very important that we try to keep those brain sides balanced, and we don't get stuck in one side or the other, because obviously you're not going to function well if you're stuck in the totally creative side and you're out there in la la land. That's fine during the periods of time where you want to do that, but it's not a good functional space to stay in every day. So we have information coming in. It is actually flowing from the right side of the brain and into the left side to get interpreted. What we want to do is we want to kind of catch that information before we allow the left brain to think about it very long. And this is all split second kinds of information sharing. But we can train ourselves to get a hold of that information quickly. You don't have to think about, oh, wait, was that information? Let me think about it, and you will talk yourself out of it every single time. So what you want to do is just feel it, hear it, see it, smell it, and go with that. If that means saying it out loud, that's fine, because you will tend to remember more if you're, say, if you're a visual learner, it would help to write it down and look at it. If you're an audio learner, you say it out loud, you know, and you'll remember that then. And everybody's different, but definitely allow that right brain to give you the information, but then think about it quickly. It's important to allow that. We tend to put constraints on everything. We want to have rules. You know, I'm not psychic if I don't see things. I'm not psychic if I'm not precognitive, which is totally different. We are all psychic, and it is just a matter of practicing it and training ourselves to recognize those subtle signs that are going to be how we receive our information. Every way of receiving information is valid. Every way. You know, there isn't one or better. If you're a medium, for example, and you smell apple pie, and you tell that person, I'm smelling apple pie, it could be because this grandmother always made apple pie whenever you came to visit. So that would allow you to know that that particular person was there with you at the time. Like I said, my dad always smells like cigarette smoke, but that was because he was the only person I let smoke in my car because I was afraid to tell him no. You know, it's like, but that is exactly how I know it's him. Until I actually get to see him with a dog. So it's, everybody gets their information differently, and it can change. You know, you may be somebody who hears buzzing on this side and then you get a word. And different levels of beings will give you information differently. Angels can come at certain places near you. So if you always get a word from the right side, then you'll learn over time, okay, maybe that's your angel. Maybe that's your guardian angel. If you get images coming in the back of your head, then that may be your guide. You just have to work with the information and then figure out who is it. You know, we really, for ourselves, we want information from our higher self first, because that is our connection to energy, to source, to the unified field, to divine. That's where we want to get our information from. We may get feedback all day long from guides or angels or, you know, whatever. When I hear my mom, it's always my name, Monica. It's like, whoa, okay, Mom. You know, it's you know. And then I might get information, or I just may know that she was there and wanted to say hey. You know, that's, everybody's gonna have their own code basically with the information and know what it means for them. If you're gonna ask every day, what do I most need to know today? And you know, you can do that in a variety of ways. We can ask that question of our higher self and then wait for the answer, or we can pull a card, or we can do whatever to get that information. But it's important to practice. So that's a good question to ask every day.
So that's a good way to practice, is to ask this question.
You have to get into a centered self. So either you're meditating, you're preparing to meditate, you do some breath work, you create a little bit of a routine when you want to do information. So you may sit in a room, you may light a specific scent of incense, you may light a candle. You create the atmosphere for that information to flow easily to you. when we do readings for others, we always have an affirmation and a small prayer kind of thing for each person who comes in, that you give them the information that they're looking for, and you're protected with all your guides and angels. So it's quick, it takes seconds. It's not like you have to spend a lot of time getting the room ready. But if you're home and you want to do that, you have to find a centered space for yourself so that you can then allow information to come to you. The quieter you can make your mind, obviously, the easier it's going to be to discern what is a message and what am I just thinking about.
Yeah.
So we try to quiet the mind. You can do it while walking. If you love to be outside, go to the park and take a walk and ask your question. It's a very personal thing, but it will be an easy way to get information, and quickly, and wherever you need it. So you're not waiting to be home so you can lay out cards, or you're not looking for your pendulum, or you can ask your higher self anytime, anywhere, for information. And you will start to get information all day long, whether you like it or not. Once that door is open and you're allowing it to be open all the time and being there for you, then you will get all kinds of feedback from Source all the time. So if you're doing something and you're driving somewhere and it's all green lights, you're going to know that you're in that space and flow and you're going to do the right things. If you say, okay, I'm going to go get this job, and you're not sure about it, or you might be ambivalent, but you may think, oh, it's the best job in the world for me, and you hit every red light and you're going to be late, it is not the job for you. That's pretty in your face. And if you miss that, you're not paying attention. You really have to pay attention. It can be big and in your face like that. It could be just that inkling that it's just something's off. And somebody may say in your head, this is just not it. Go home, whatever. But everybody's going to get that information differently, but you get it all day long. We just don't pay attention. We get busy, we're distracted, watching TV all the time, whatever. Scrolling, getting on the internet and going down these rabbit holes. That is going to keep us from being as connected to Source as we need to be. So, any questions?
Well, so I did a pottery wheel class recently, but when I was on the way, I hit a lot of red lights. But I also just thought I left a little later than I intended to, and sometimes I think when I do that, I hit all the red lights.
Well, it's a message you need to leave earlier.
Okay, yeah.
It may not be, don't go to the pottery class, but if it's a trend and you've done it how many times and you hit all the red lights, somebody's trying to tell you to be a little bit more timely.
Yeah, okay. But,
especially if it happens frequently. That's another thing. If it happens over and over and over again, it's really important to think about what that means. I know it didn't mean don't go to the pottery class.
No, I definitely thought, I not even meant to leave earlier. It's just, it was one of those times I had to run home for something, and something's always something, and something's something, and something.
Well, your guides may be trying to give you a little bit of information that if you continue down this path of continuously trying to make it at the last minute, you're going to miss something important.
Yeah.
Okay. So they may just be trying to set you up for success later.
Yeah.
Just kind of follow those signs and symbols. But it is important that we quiet our mind. It's important that we allow the information to come in. If you have a very negative belief system about that, it's going to hinder your ability to receive. So, make positive statements about allowing. I wish to receive as much information today as possible. I want to stay connected to Source. I want to stay connected to divine energy. I know I'm not separate from the unified field. Let me take as much information from that as possible, and then feel that physical connection. Feel that information field flowing through you and allowing that information to be part of who you are. Makes it a little easier. And don't question. Just accept.
Oh, okay.
Just accept. There is one time we should question. If we ever receive information that is negative, that is judgmental, then it is not coming from source.
Yeah.
It is not coming from the unified field. It is not coming from your higher self. Those are times when you just let it go. Because it could just be your subconscious mind trying to undermine you. I'm not sure I believe that it would be a negative personality doing that, but I'm not going to rule it out because people believe that. But there is nothing going to come from source, channeled, your individual information in a reading, whatever, that is judgmental or negative, because that is not this kind of information that we want to receive. Something else is making it manipulative. It's not for real. Not your connection to source. And that applies to reading things as well.
I think it's a lot of what we've come to expect for ourselves, or whatever negativity we've held on to or had baked in, basically.
Yeah, we don't need to watch the news every day.
We should be aware, but
awareness is one thing,
but
you should not overwhelm yourself. And it's very interesting because I've read certain authors for years who channeled, and it was all amazing information. And the last thing I read from one of the channelers was very judgmental. And I thought, okay, that is not coming from source. So I'm going to disregard all this information because this is just not what you're getting from the divine. And so we have to remember that, especially even if somebody that you've followed for a long time, or an organization that you trust, like Noetic Sciences or the Monroe Institute, or anywhere that you feel you're getting pretty good information. If it ever comes through, somebody gives you judgmental information or negative information of any kind, not going there. we disregard that because it's not coming from divine or your higher self. That's just not how that operates. So we're going to talk about how to get connected to the unified field in our next get together. So
perfect.
We will talk then. Thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.